In today's video, I'm talking about the biggest problem facing every single NBA team in the Western Conference. Look, I know we're only 5 games into the season, but some of these things could be season-long issues. So look, if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. I do have an Eastern Conference version coming out soon as well. But let's kick things off from the 1st seed all the way down to the 15th seed, starting off with the Dallas Mavericks, and I've got defense being an issue. Look, right now, they're a perfect 4-0, so it's not exactly easy to nitpick some things. But with that being said, it is important to note that their 4 wins are against the Grizzlies, the Bulls, the Nets, and the Spurs, none of which are bona fide playoff teams. Currently, the defense is ranked 19th in the entire league, and when you factor in the fact that they've played those 4 teams, which are relatively middle-of-the-road teams, it's not that inspiring. And you do have to consider whether or not their defense will hold up enough for them to win close games when their offense will inevitably stagnate at times, right? You've got Luka and Kyrie, who will always be defensive liabilities. So you're putting a ton of pressure already in Grant Williams defending the opposing team's best perimeter player. We all saw how that went last playoffs when he was defending Jimmy Butler. And then you're counting on your rookie center, Derek Lively, to anchor the paint. As good as he's been, he's still a rookie. Next up, we've got the Golden State Warriors. I've got their issue being depth. Now hear me out, okay? They're currently 4-1, sitting pretty comfy. And we all know as long as their core is healthy, they're right up there in terms of the best in the West. The starting 5 has one of the best net ratings the past few seasons, and now they've added CP3 to elevate that second unit, right? With that being said, I do think depth is an issue when it comes to talent. You know, the Golden State Warriors, they're very, very reliant on Steph Curry's offensive skills, and having him essentially bail them out of a lot of games. And so, whilst the system is excellent, and whilst CP3 is going to elevate the bench, you have to wonder, out of that bench group of, Jonathan Kuminga, Gary Payton II, Dario Saric, Moses Moody, or even CP3 these days, can you really rely on any of those guys to give you a consistent 10 points every single night? I don't. So that could be an issue that arises, especially when you factor in the age. You want that core resting as much as possible. And I don't think that bench unit is going to be putting away teams, when their starters are resting. So that could be an issue. Next up, we've got the Denver Nuggets. And right now, look, I'm picking Michael Porter Jr. because I have to nitpick something. And with that being said, the Nuggets, we all know, they're the most well-oiled machine in the NBA, obviously led by Nikola Jokic. And if I had to pick something, it would be MPJ's play so far. Currently, he's averaging 10.8 points per game, shooting 39.6% from the field and 31.3% from 3. Look, he's always been very streaky, so I've no doubt, those shooting percentages and his numbers will kind of go back up as the season goes on. But I'm more so concerned about the fact that he hasn't proven that he can be a reliable offensive threat alongside Jamal Murray when Nikola Jokic is sitting on the bench. Last season, they had Bruce Brown. This season, they don't. So in those, 15 minutes per game that Jokic is sitting, you have to be able to sustain that, offensive threat, right? So, and right now, the results haven't been very encouraging. You got the Murray, Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, Michael Porter Jr., Zeke Naji lineup. They're getting absolutely obliterated when they have played together without Jokic. Now, whilst it is a small sample size, it's more so a concern that Mike Malone doesn't really trust MPJ running with the second unit alongside Jamal Murray. He often has, Murray, Reggie Jackson, Brown, Peyton Watson, and Zeke Naji. So that's a cause for concern in my opinion. But look, I just had to pick something, right? Next up, we've got the New Orleans Pelicans. I'm going with Zion Williamson's health. Okay, we all know how good the Pels are when Zion is healthy. They were the number 1 seed last season when he was healthy. And right now they're 4-1. They're looking good, man. So even though they're 4-1, you have to consider the fact that Brandon Ingram was out for 3 games, and they're missing 3 key role players who haven't even debuted yet in, Trey Murphy, Jose Alvarado, Najee Marshall, and they're still 4-1. So if I had to pick something, Zion's health. But right now, they're looking pretty good. Next up, the LA Lakers. It's relying on a 38-year-old LeBron James. The minutes restriction fucking lasted 1 game, bro. What are they doing? And although, I've spoken how highly of the Lakers offseason, how deep they are as a team, how stacked they look on paper, no matter what, they just can't figure out a way to be half decent without LeBron. I feel like it doesn't even matter what the personnel is. Maybe LeBron's just that good. The bench is dead last in points per game. And after strong playoff performances, guys like Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura, and Gabe Vincent have completely shit the bed. Although to their credit, they have started playing a bit better in their last game, right? And whilst guys like, Anthony Davis, D'Lo, Christian Wood, Taurean Prince, they've all played to standard this season. For whatever reason, no matter what, as soon as LeBron sits, the Lakers just crap themselves, and it's just a bit mind-boggling. So they have to find a way to stop playing LeBron James 38, 40 minutes every single game. Next up, we've got the Los Angeles Clippers. My biggest concern with them is the center position. First things first, right? Zubac, I think, is a fine NBA player, but as a starting center on a team with championship aspirations, he's not it. He's just better served as a backup. He's not the best rim protector, not the best defender. Offensively, he's not a huge threat. Teams are targeting him in the pick and roll, which makes him essentially unplayable in the fourth, which is why they play Batum, PJ Tucker at the small ball five. Same concerns go for Plumlee. Both of these guys can't catch a ball to save their life, and unless it's a wide open layup or dunk under the basket, they have zero touch around the rim. PJ Tucker, he's the best option at small ball five, and he's kind of washed these days, so there's a bit of concern there in my opinion. Next up, we've got the San Antonio Spurs. I don't know if this is cheating, but I really don't see any problem with the way they've looked so far. They're 3-2, I think they are, and so far they're fucking fun to watch, man. And as a team without many expectations going into the season, there really isn't much to be disappointed about, unless you were expecting them to make a playoff push. Wemby, fresh off a 38-point fantastic performance against the Phoenix Suns. Devin Vassell proving to all the casuals out there that, he's worthy of that contract. And this core is showing that they're going to be a force to reckon with in a few years' time. And they've got Trey Jones, Jeremy Sohan, Keldon Johnson all balling out. Fuck, even Chetty Osman's coming off the bench hitting threes. Zach Collins been playing his role pretty well. So they're looking pretty good. Next up, the Oklahoma City Thunder. My problem with them is that they have extremely high expectations. But if I'm being honest, there's no real negatives on this young OKC team. There's a lot of people expecting OKC to finish in the top 6, in the top 4 of the West. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander stepping up to, an MVP candidate. And these fans are just going to be disappointed if that doesn't happen. Maybe it will happen. I don't know for sure, right? But you got to remember, this is a very young team. They're going to make mistakes that you see in a young team. Their head coach is very young and relatively inexperienced. That's going to show at times. And, right now, I feel like if they don't make the playoffs because the West is so stacked, so be it. It can be another developmental year. These guys are very young. They're only going to get better. So people feel like they just need to put a break on the expectations a little and just let this core grow. Next up, we've got the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I've got offensive consistency being their problem. The Wolves currently, best defense in the NBA. Offensive consistency is what I'm a little bit worried about, albeit 4 or 5 games into the season. Right now, they're 24th in offensive rating. Ant-Man and Karl Anthony Towns completely fucked things up against the Hawks game and just blew it away with their poor decision-making, essentially. And last season, we did see a tendency where the Wolves' offense would stagnate, would crumble when Anthony Edwards was forcing the issue when his shot wasn't falling. This season, you don't want to see the same thing with this team again. You have to ask, can Karl Anthony Towns step up and be a number 1 option on those nights that Anthony Edwards, his shot isn't falling? Can Naz Reid or Shake Milton come in and provide a much-needed spark? These are all questions that still, need to be answered. The Sacramento Kings, I'm going with defense. Look, much like last season, I feel like defense will continue to be an issue with the Kings so long as their core is the same personnel, really. They're currently ranked 17th in defensive rating, which is a slight improvement over last season's 24th place ranking. But if you look at the starting lineup, Fox and Barnes are your 2 best individual defenders. And overall, they're probably average defenders by all accounts. So I feel like if they don't upgrade the personnel, the defensive ceiling of this team is only going to get you so far. I would love to see them take a swing at someone like Jeremy Grant. He's someone who can function as a weak side help defender, as a weak side rim protector, someone that you can throw on the opposition's best perimeter player. And I feel like he would be a great fit next to Domantas Sabonis, similar to how Aaron Gordon is a great fit next to Nikola Jokic. Now, if they can get a Jeremy Grant or if they can push their defense to a top 12, to complement their offense a little bit, they're going to be a very, very hard team to beat because their offense is otherworldly good. Next up, we've got the Phoenix Suns. My issue with them is the center position. Look, I was never a fan of trading DeAndre Ayton for Yusuf Nurkic. And whilst Ayton, obviously, he had his own problems, don't get me wrong, his ceiling as an individual player is far higher than Yusuf Nurkic. Because outside of, the occasional pass from the high post and, a 3-pointer here and there, Nurkic is a complete liability on both ends of the floor. The Suns' offensive rating stands at a minus 0.1 with him on the floor versus a plus 11.1 with him off. And defensively, if the game's on the line and a 10-year-old's calling ISO on Yusuf Nurkic, I feel like the 10-year-old's going to score. DeAndre Ayton, meanwhile, he has all the physical tools to be a much more impactful two-way player. Whether or not he can put that together is a completely different question, but I do feel like it was a waste to not at least give it a crack with DeAndre Ayton under Frank Vogel. because I feel like if there was any coach that could get Aiden to lock in defensively, it probably would have been Vogel, but shoulda, coulda, would have. Next up, we've got the Portland Trail Blazers. I don't have anything as a problem for them, really, so nothing. Look, right now, the Blazers, they're 2-3, which is pretty respectable by their standards. You know, they're expected to be tanking, blah, blah, blah. Shaedon Sharpe, off to a great start, picking up right where he left off last season. He's averaging 20.2 points, 5.6 rebounds, 3 assists per game, shooting 46.1% from the field and 37.5% from three. Looking great. Scoot Henderson, meanwhile, off to a bit of a slow start. You know, he's averaging 8.8 points, shooting 34.6% from the field and 9.5% from three. But look, the Blazers aren't going anywhere. This is growing pains. You know, you trust that he'll get better. The Blazers, I feel like, should just focus on developing that young core, you know, with Sharpe, with Scoot Henderson, with Anthony Simons, DeAndre Ayton, Robert Williams. And then, you know, let the vets play some pretty nice basketball. You know, shop Jeremy Grant at the trade deadline. Malcolm Brogdon's off to a pretty fucking nice start. You know, his value's going up because there were some injury concerns with him and he's proving that he's healthy. So they're looking pretty good. Next up, we've got the Utah Jazz. Direction is one that I feel like is a problem. You know, we all know that the Utah Jazz, you know, they're kind of in like a rebuilding phase somewhat. But I'll tell you what, if 2K simulated a fantasy draft for you, you know, the final roster would probably look like something like the Utah Jazz. You've got a star player in Larry Marketing, a very young, you know, building block in Walker Kessler. And then after that, it's just a random assortment of players. You know, you got to ask, are THT and Colin Sexton part of their long-term core that they want to build around? What about John Collins? Is he part of that core as well? You got to ask, is having 3 bigs really the way to go? You know, especially with the money they're committed to John Collins. You know, what about Jordan Clarkson, Kelly Olynyk? They're both over 30 years of age. They can help contenders. When are they going to trade them and cash in on their assets? And speaking of their assets, all the picks that they have, are they going to make a splash on a young player and just overpay someone in free agency? What are they going to do? So I feel like these questions need to be answered before the Jazz can be taken a lot more seriously, because right now they're kind of in like no man's land. They're not talented enough to win a lot of games, but they're not necessarily bad enough to be fully tanking. So that's that. Next up, we've got the Houston Rockets. Again, I'm saying nothing really, because let's be real, no one's expecting the Rockets to do much. The biggest goal this season, in my opinion, for them is to establish some type of defensive identity under Ime Udoka and just letting the young core grow. And the starting 5 of, you know, Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, Jabari Smith Jr., and Alperen Şengün, they've been pretty fucking good, surprisingly. Plus 12.4 net rating, which ranks 6 out of 20 lineups to have played at least 40 minutes together. So let the young core grow, let Amen Thompson, Cam Whitmore get more minutes, and they're in pretty good shape. Lastly, the Memphis Grizzlies, offense is their issue. They're 0-5, the only winless team in the NBA. They're dead last in offensive rating. They've still got 20 games to go before Ja Morant comes back from the suspension. And in my opinion, if they don't get their shit together in the next 5 to 10 games, and they, you know, let's say the next 10 games they go like 2-8 or something like that, their season might already be over. They're missing Steven Adams for the whole season. Brandon Clark is probably gone for the whole season. So they're just in a lot of trouble. And offensively, you know, Desmond Bane, great offensive player, very underrated, but he's not made to be someone who can carry you offensively on a game-by-game basis. Jaren Jackson Jr., Marcus Smart, they're currently the second and third options when they have no business sniffing that responsibility. And you look at the injuries, man. You know, I already spoke to Adams and Clark. They're missing Luke Kennard. They're missing Sauti Aldama. Derrick Rose is fucking injured. There's just everything that can go wrong has gone wrong for the Grizzlies since Ja Morant said he's fine in the West. So, yeah, look, right now I feel like they just got to get healthy first and foremost and then figure shit out from there. But their offense, man, if they don't get any better very soon, like, yeah, their season might already be over. So that's that. That's what I've got as the biggest problem facing every single NBA team right now. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, give me your thoughts. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.